Whoa. What's the crack, guys? I'm just after doing a Tabata around on the bike, so I've got to catch my breath. But I want to try and do this all in one take in this video. So if I'm doing it all in one take, excuse if I have some bloopers in there. But I want to just try and do this all in one take and see what happens. Whew, again, I just got to catch my breath. The burn is real. It's a cold, bitter night and the burn is real in the lungs. So I have a couple more rounds to do on that. But in this video I want to talk about my hip, what has happened, give you some of the subjective stuff, so some of the discomfort I'm feeling, and give you some objective stuff, looking at some tests to see if we can figure out what it is, in the hope that I can pass on some knowledge to you. So this is kind of more the physio end of things. I am a physiotherapist, so I feel like I'm very lucky to be a physiotherapist because I've had injuries everywhere, and I definitely feel if I wasn't a physio I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am in terms of playing ability, and I'd certainly be spending a lot more time on the sideline with injuries. So it's great to be able to be a physio, to be able to look after yourself. So this originally happened doing a power clean over there. It was 40 kilos. If I have a clip of it, I'll roll a clip over this footage. So guys, I think this was the workout where I hurt my back. So this was on the 1st of December, which is like nearly 4 months ago now. That was pre-Christmas. Felt a little bit of a twinge in my back slash in my hip. It was grand. I set a PB, I'm fairly sure, in that workout, in a power clean. I subsequently, in the week or two later, set a PB in my squat, and I set another PB in my power clean, and maybe a week or two after that. So when this originally happened, there was definitely a point in time where I said, yeah, that's when it happened. But I did continue to perform at maximal level of ability, and it didn't hinder me in running or anything like that. Now, since going back training, and over the Christmas period and in the January period, it's gotten a lot worse, to the point now where I can't participate in training. I used to be able to do the runs in straight lines and that would be fine. Just the twisting and turning will catch me a little bit, and the kicking will catch me. But now any twisting and turning, any kicking, any running over 80% all catches me and makes this a lot worse. So this has gotten progressively worse over the last couple of months, and part of the reason why it's gotten worse is because I've been doing a lot of sitting and I haven't been looking after my body. Stress levels have been high because my hours of sleep have been really, really low, and I think that's a really important point. I keep on turning this way because I'm going to lie down on this in a minute. This is my physio bed. But I think it's a really important point that when your stress levels are high, no matter what kind of an injury is, no matter what kind of an injury you have, you're going to be struggling that little bit more to get over it. So I know that my sleeping pattern and my stress levels as a result of a lack of sleep aren't helping this. So I'm going to talk through presentation wise where I have discomfort to try and give you an understanding of what's going on. So basically, if I lie here, usually I'm okay, alright? Now if I tilt my pelvis and I press down my lower back into the ground, alright, so here I'm actually fine, no discomfort at all. But as soon as I start pressing down here and press my lower back into the ground, that's when I start to get this discomfort here and a little bit down into the back of the leg. Now there's a typical test the physios do called an active straight leg raise. Okay, so if I do it on my left, I come up to here. You've seen me do this before to test the length of your hamstrings. So when you come up, stretching the back of the leg, test the length of the hamstrings. I even feel this now starting to get worse. But if I come up here, I start to get it down the back of my leg there already, and back down. Now in this position, there's no tension on my hamstrings. My hamstrings don't get stretched until way up here. Okay, so it's not my hamstrings. And the pain certainly feels a lot different than a hamstring stretch. So this here, this catch and this discomfort down the back of my leg, which is getting worse now as I'm lying, is my sciatic nerve. Okay, that's a typical test for sciatic nerve. And if you want to double check if it's a sciatic nerve, pull the toe up towards you and go again, and it gets worse. And if you want to check it again, tuck your chin in here and lift up, and you get it a little bit earlier. So your nerve obviously goes from your head all the way down into your toes, and it's more or less a set length. So if I lift my head up here like this, if I keep my head here,
that's going to put more tension on that nerve because it's going to pull the nerve up. And now when I lift my leg, I get the discomfort a little bit earlier, whereas if I leave my head back, I don't get the discomfort as early. All right. Now, this is the weird thing, right? If I tend to arch my back like this, okay, so this is called anterior pelvic tilt. So if I anteriorly tilt my pelvis and lift up, I get a hamstring stretch. Okay, I get the stretch. I don't get my nerve pain anymore. If I posteriorly tilt my pelvis like this and I go up, oh, now I get it a lot earlier, and I can even feel it getting worse there now. Okay, so that's what's really weird for me is usually that anterior posterior tilt doesn't have a massive, you know, it doesn't really change, shouldn't really change that test as drastically as it does with me. All right, so if I go back to my symptoms, then a lot of this pain here happens on knee drive. So when I'm running, oh, even getting out of there now, it's catching me. But when I'm running, when I drive that knee forward, it's the right knee. So when I drive that knee forward, that's where I feel it. Okay, it's not in the downward push; it's in the knee drive forward. Okay, and even getting up and out of a chair there is really catching me. The other area really catches me. So if I go into a deep squat position, so if I go down here, deep squat, now it starts to pinch me. So it's whenever I close this gap here, okay, so close the pelvis into my leg, so pelvis into femur, that's when I get the discomfort. And even when I drop my leg there, I can kind of feel it as well. So it's when I really close that gap is where I irritate my sciatic nerve. So the sciatic nerve comes from the brain down the spinal cord, out of the lumbar spine, down into the back of the leg. And if I even pull that leg in there, I can really feel it as well. So I actually get pretty irritated there. So I have to figure out where is that sciatic nerve being irritated. A typical offender on this is the piriformis. So piriformis, for example, goes from your pelvis here out into your femur. Okay, so it goes across your body like this. And if you're ever lying down in the bed and someone's digging in there and there's a really tight muscle, and you feel something happening there, that's your piriformis. All right, now typical stretch for the piriformis goes something like this. Okay, and you can activate the piriformis, but if I drive my foot in here, that more or less turns on the piriformis. Here's the opposite side. I can drive in. That feels the exact same on both sides for me, okay? But if I check my hip flexor, all right, which is another muscle that the sciatic nerve runs through, if I check that hip flexor, now I get discomfort. All right, so a typical hip flexor test, you won't be able to see me there, so let me get rid of one of these boxes. So a typical hip flexor test for the rectus femoris here on top, which is one of your hip flexors, is like so. It's called a Thomas test. So I drop this leg down here, I should be able to really relax that leg. And what we like to do in the gym is force this leg in under here so that it gets about 135 degrees or a 45-degree angle between this line and the lower leg. We like everyone to be able to get there, all right? And that would indicate good hip flexor strength, or good hip flexor length, sorry. And my hip flexor length is fine. Now if I want to check the iliopsoas inside here in the hip, so the higher hip flexor, or the deeper hip flexor, what I do is I straighten that leg, and I should be able to get that knee way below my hip. And I'm well able to do that, and I've checked that before as well. And even when I push through, I do get a bit of a stretch. But when I compare that to the other side, I get the exact same thing. Okay, so that's equal on both sides, and so is my hip flexor. So I don't think it's a strength thing. Again, I think it's more that nerve passing through somewhere and getting caught somewhere. Now, if I look at this tilt, and whenever I tilt now, I'm really starting to get it. But whenever I look at this tilt, it is my upper. Yeah, it's so. Whenever I tilt there, you know, there just is where I'm feeling it. And again, it's quite possibly that hip flexor, the deep hip flexor, that when I turn that hip flexor on, it pinches on that nerve and it's sending the discomfort down my back and my leg. And if I check the strength of those hip flexors, ooh, now it's really starting to catch me. If I test the strength of those hip flexors by doing something like an active straight leg raise, just even up and down like this, or the same on the other side, I certainly find my right side a lot stronger than my left. If I demonstrate that with something really quick. So if you use a mini band like this. Alright, and if I go, oh, so I actually really struggle to get this on. I struggle to put my shoes and socks on in the morning, so if I check both sides here, I certainly find that my right is a lot weaker than my left. Okay, and this deep hip flexor test is one that I find whenever I do it, I'm not in massive discomfort when I do it, but after I do it, I definitely feel like I'm after working whatever area is being irritated. So if I come down here, let me go from here, my belly. If I come down here, oh, as soon as I get in here, oh, I'm really starting to feel that now. Okay, so that's really aggravating my pain. That's actually too bad to do it. Okay, so basically if I go into that position, which is my 4-point kneeling position, and that band is pulling my torso, or my, let's say my back, up this way. So what I'm doing to bring myself into this position, this might be called a cat camel, I think this is the cat, right? So if I bring myself into a cat position, I'm using that iliopsoas, that deep hip flexor, and it's the top portion of that iliopsoas that goes from the spine to the pelvis. I'm using those muscles to bring me into this position, and then I'm relaxing, and I'm using those muscles again to bring me in here, and then I'm relaxing. And I certainly find that of all the exercises, if I was to pick one, it will be that one that really aggravates it. So ultimately I think it's my hip flexor, the top couple of fibers of my hip flexor where my sciatic nerve passes through, that's irritating that nerve. And like my right leg is after getting smaller than my left leg. I haven't measured it, but visually I can tell it's after getting smaller. It's so much weaker. I did a set of lunges the other day and I was hardly able to lunge off my right leg. And I'm doing everything this way. So I'm picking everything up, single leg RDL, like that. So I'm not using my right leg at all. And anything like trying to put my shoes or my socks on in the morning, really difficult on my right leg. So this has been going on now for about 8 to 10 weeks. And usually if I was the client, if I was my own client, I'd be sending my client to get an MRI and to look down that route and to rule those things out. But in my own head, I think if I get an MRI and something does show up and I have to get some kind of surgery, then really like my football will be, it'll really put my football at risk of finishing, you know. And it's not like I have that many more years to play football, and work is very busy at the moment, and there's a lot of things happening which I need to dedicate time to. So I'm not even considering that. Someone said it to me the other day, but in my own head I'm not even considering that. All I'm thinking about is getting this right. So in order to get this right, I've got to do those couple of things I talked about at the start. I've got to look after my sleep. I've got to get my stress levels back down again, and I've got to get back in and doing some kind of routine. I need to start picking up on things that I can do. I can do step-ups, I can do some kind of hamstring work, I can do quad work, I can do a lot of conditioning. I need to start doing a bit more core work. Any intra-abdominal pressure also makes this worse. So if I brace my core, really aggravates it, alright? So if I cough or sneeze, anything like that really aggravates it. So all that intra-abdominal pressure, which will turn on that hip flexor, aggravates this as well. So I need to get back exercising, get my recovery right, I need to get my nutrition right. My nutrition's fine. I need to get my training right, and I need to really focus on this, because if I don't get this right, then a big part of my life and what I like to do and what I love, which is football, is going out the window. So that's the video. It's a little bit long. I'm going to put a little disclaimer at the start of this video to say it's long-winded and it is maybe a little bit different to what I normally do. But if you like the video, give the video a like. Thank you to everyone who's been showing so much support. So much going on here at the moment, but I really do want to get back playing football. I feel like I've gone from, I was the fittest, fastest, strongest I've ever been, and I thought my skill levels were improving all the time. I was there around Christmas time setting PBs and everything, and now I just feel like I'm potentially, I'll never be able to play football again if this continues the way it is. So this has to get better if I want to go play football. That's the video. Thank you so much. See you in the next one. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. smash the subscribe button, as they say, and I will see you in the next one. Slán. Oh my God.